And joining us now to talk weather here as we head into another week of September and continue with harvest across the country. Eric Snodgrass of Nutrien is with us. Eric, good to catch up with you again this week. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right, although not much sleep was had around here. We had a bunch of severe weather roll through central Illinois last night, and I was up watching some of the hail and debating on whether or not I should send my family to the basement. But thankfully, the winds weren't strong. So I just got a bunch of debris in my yard to clean up today. And unfortunately, I think it did some damage to the crop. Although this time of year, you damage the crop, and it's as long as it doesn't hurt that ear, you're in pretty good shape. But there's some soybeans around here that still need some more time. So I'm going to go out later today and kind of scout to see what kind of damage we had.
Well, talk a little more about that severe weather and some of the rainfall we saw over the weekend. I know there were some areas there, your area back into Iowa as well, that saw some fairly hefty amounts of rainfall over the weekend.
Yeah, some of these storms put down several inches of rain. We had some pockets that picked up 3 to 4 inches plus. And remember, all these storms started the day before on Saturday in Kansas, parts of southeast Nebraska, and hit southern Iowa, where there was numerous reports of very large hail. Then it was yesterday that they came out of parts of eastern Iowa through northern Missouri and then clipped a big section of Illinois. And thankfully, they've kind of, slowed down a bit as they head toward Indiana early this morning here. But it was some pretty nasty storms that rolled through that area with some locally very heavy rain. So if a crop was pretty far along, I'd be concerned if there might be some lodging, some issues there going on. But by the way, California, there's a bunch of folks in Northern California that picked up 2 to 3 inches of rain, as well as this deep cutoff low sat over that area too. So it was an interesting weekend in terms of figuring out when and where all of these storms are going to roll through the country.
Well, I know we've been talking about a lot of different things the last couple of weeks, Eric, and you mentioned the tropics a few times, and I know we have Hurricane Fiona out there. My question is it going to impact any part of the U.S. moving forward?
No. So after hitting, Puerto Rico, of course, yesterday as a pretty strong, I think it was a Category 1 at landfall, but it's continued to strengthen. In fact, it hit the Dominican Republic last night. I've heard some preliminary reports of over 2 feet of rainfall from it. And at one point yesterday, no one on the island had state-run power. So everyone had an outage. And so unless you had a generator, there was no power. Now, they've restored it for about 100,000 people, but they still have a long way to go. Well, that hurricane's going to turn north, not come toward the East Coast, and it'll likely just miss Bermuda to the west. Now, let me rephrase that. The eye will miss Bermuda to the west. The strongest part of the hurricane will likely go over the top of Bermuda, which could be a problem. But Bermuda is an island that is built to handle hurricanes, so we hope that they're not going to have much damage from that. But here's the crazy thing. The leftover of Fiona, gosh, this would be this weekend, could get yanked all the way into Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, eastern Quebec, as this big broad front sweeps through the United States and grabs hold of it and basically takes it into eastern Canada. So we see this happen, but it's just impressive to say the least.
Well, we'll continue to watch the tropics moving forward. Eric, let's shift back to the northern plains. I know we've seen a few scattered showers, a few disturbances move through the last couple of days, and we're getting to that time period where we got to start thinking about frost. And I know that's something that growers in the northern plains do not want to hear, a normal or early frost. They want to have a late frost, but I know you're picking up some potential for that as we move forward here this week. Talk about what you're hearing.
I think what I'm hearing really started for you and I last week when we were at Big Iron, and crop went in late. We knew that it was cold and it was wet, but they played catch up with some heat units throughout the summer. But still, it'd be nice to get another 10 more days or more of just warmer conditions and some drier conditions. But the concern is that some of the models are hinting that once this front clears this area, this Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we could have a few areas where the lows drop down to the mid-30s. So then what happens is the low-lying areas, especially on calm nights with clear skies, the temperature can bottom out another 3, 4, 5 degrees. So what I'm worried about is maybe along the U.S.-Canada border, getting over to the Great Lakes, we could see pretty far north, at least a small chance at having some patchy frost. Now, if you get past it and it doesn't hit us this weekend, mild air returns. So I see us getting into first week of October before we have this discussion again.
Well, mild air returning and heat returning to some parts of the country, I know as well here this week. Eric, talk about the rest of the country, especially parts of the central southern plains, the mid-south. I know we're talking some pretty intense temperatures.
Yeah, so Monday and Tuesday of this week, we're looking at upper 90s, lower 100s in parts of South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, even western Iowa, and parts of Missouri. And then by the time we get out there to Wednesday, Thursday, the temperatures could fall off 35 plus degrees as that front comes through. So another day where we're adding more of that scorching heat into the mix, but big swings in temperature. That's normal for this time of year, but this is a big one given how hot it's going to be today and tomorrow in parts of the Central Plains.
Okay, so taking all this into account, Eric, I know we talked last week about the harvest weather ahead the next couple of weeks. Let's shift our focus back there a little bit as we're really starting to kind of pick up into harvest season across a broad area of the country. So, what are your thoughts on that forecast moving forward, taking into account all of the things that we mentioned already?
So farther to the south, so let's just call it Oklahoma to Texas through the mid-south, getting over to Tennessee, Kentucky, and then all the way to the, really the mid-Atlantic. This is the area that's got the best chance at seeing warmer conditions, drier conditions, and if there's stuff that needs to get harvested, they're going to move quickly. Now, the crop in Texas needs more time. They had a lot of issues with drought, some replanted stuff there, like cotton needs more heat and needs more time, and they're going to get it. But across the northern tier of the United States, so let's just call it the the Western Corn Belt, the upper Midwest, and getting into the I states, especially, there's going to be 2 chances for some rain coming through in the next 7 days. But after that, there's no long range forecast that calls it over wet or cold. And we can all help that, whole thought process along by just remembering we've got La Nina. La Ninas do not tend to give us really cold early fall time periods. They tend to be colder later once we get into winter when you compare to average. So I'm still looking at more favorable conditions for a lot of folks throughout much of the Midwest and corn and soybean belt.
I should ask as well, South America, any updates to the weather and how things are looking down there?
Yeah, some storms over the weekend in Uruguay are going to go a long way to help relieve some of the drought there, but still just north of that, Rio Grande do Sul, it's been quite dry. And then in Argentina, we still have large areas that are dealing with drought. But the real question is, how fast can they plant in big states like Mato Grosso? Because here we are, 4 days after they could start planting. And we expect them, with the rains we're anticipating between now and the next, sorry, someone rang the doorbell, between now and the next, 10 to 15 days to be quite wet in that area.
Fantastic. Well, I know you can sign up for Eric's daily newsletter online on markettalkag.com with that. Eric Snodgrass of Nutrien. Always appreciate the time, sir. Thanks for joining us and have a great week.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.